You know, I'm going to give you a history lesson.
We got some dumbass motherfuckers floating around this country.
Stop laughing! And when I do, start.
Also, y'all did some nasty-ass jokes on my ass, too.
Funny jokes and unfunny jokes come out of the same birth.
You f***ing guys are unbelievable.
Why are you laughing?
Evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Why Are You Laughing, a history of comedy podcast. And today, I am pleased to introduce to you Norm Macdonald on the Dennis Miller Show. And that is Dennis Miller of all varieties. We're talking about him on both TV and radio. And this is our yearly Norm Macdonald episode. When this comes out, we're recording it over the summer, but when it comes out for you freeloaders, it will be around the time Norm Macdonald passed, this time 4 years ago, which is kind of crazy that it's already been that long. But we celebrate the great Norm Macdonald. And for this episode, you know, this is sentimental to me. I love Norm, of course, so I usually don't like busybodies nosing their way in here. But sure enough, one penetrated. But it actually makes a lot of sense. It's Dennis Miller's former producer, Christian Bladt. What's up, Christian?
Yes, I'm the busiest of bodies, and I know that this is being recorded over the summer. I'll peel back the curtain. I'm down at San Diego Comic-Con right now. You guys might know this. There's a lot of nerds down there, so I'm undercover, keeping an eye out for them to make sure that they don't want to hurt cool guys like me and you guys.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It must have taken a lot of coaching.
I really stand out like a sore thumb. They're like, "What is this cool guy doing down
Who's this
here?"
suave motherfucker?
Yeah. But we're doing this at we're doing this at 6 a.m. LA or San Diego time, and there's only 4 people that I would do this for. Obviously, you and Craig, and Dennis and Norm. So I'm glad that I get to be here.
That's I really take that to heart. That's very
You
sweet.
should. Actually, not to belabor the point too much, but you were asking me about suggestions for clips yesterday.
Yes.
And I sent you a bunch, and I'm like, wait a minute, is this son of a bitch trying to Aussie guy me? He's like asking, like, hey, can you help me put together the show? Like, he's not going to ask me to come on, is he?
It was actually I was like, if he offers, I never want to bother anyone.
Oh my God.
But I know you well enough to know, like, if he can come on, he's gonna mention that he wants to come on. So
yes, well, no, I'm glad you know me that well. That it's, hey, can you come on? What time? Yeah, no problem.
No, I am glad because, like I said, I don't know a ton about Dennis Miller's radio life at all, really. So it will be good to have your perspective. We'll start with the TV show, but first I want to say on my sister show on the Who Are These Broadcast channel. By the time this comes out, it's probably long been canceled, but keep an eye out on Tuesdays at 1 for Who Are These Broadcasters.
Yeah, with your co-hosts, Eric Zane and Clearwater Chad. That's probably who's doing that show by this point.
They've upgraded the team.
Some would say.
Anything else that people should know, Christian?
Well, let me promote the podcast that I make money off of. It's called 100 Songs That Define Heavy Metal. I am not on the air on that show. It's hosted by Metal Blade Records Metal Blade Records CEO Brian Slagle. So he started a record label 43 years ago, and he knows everybody in heavy metal. And you can find that wherever you find podcasts. I get paid for that one, so fuck the Blackcast. It doesn't make me any money.
Go subscribe to the Blackcast.
Oh, thank you, Mike.
And check out blindmike.net. If you wish you heard this episode months ago, by the time you're done listening to this, if you think, man, the only critique I have is that I wish I was listening into it in July, then you should be a member, whether it's on Patreon or YouTube. You get early access as well as bonus content. We just did a bonus episode about the Stengel brothers quitting the Opium Gym show. So if stuff like that interests you as well, we're playing the Quincy drinking game on there, all kinds of wacky stuff. And you also get early access to episodes like this. So consider becoming a member or just support the show for free wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment. It helps more people find the show. And, if you come across a topic that your friends would like, send it to them, share it, whatever. Blindmike.net is where you can find all those links. So we appreciate you guys doing that. Now, let's get into it because I've always said Norm Macdonald is the greatest talk show guest ever, in my opinion. We've done a Norm Macdonald on Conan episode, And I was thinking about maybe doing him on Letterman, but we just did a Letterman episode. So I said, you know what? I always loved, and it's a compilation. One of the compilations you sent me, Christian, the 3-hour-long Dennis Miller Radio, is one I fall asleep to very often, where it's the perfect level of Norm, where it's kind of like understated Norm, but he's making Dennis. You can tell how much Dennis loves and appreciates Norm, which is the thing I like about his Conan appearances too, and Letterman, where I like these guys that truly got Norm. Like, it's funny to watch him on The View where they don't understand him, but I really like the guys that truly love him and let him do whatever he wants.
Yeah, I mean, I think a good way to think of those appearances is that it's basically Norm unplugged, because he's on the phone and it was in the morning. I mean, the show ended by 10 Pacific time. So even when we had him at the end of the show, it's still probably a little earlier than Norm's used to entertaining. Yeah. So you definitely got a lot more free form, just stream of consciousness Norm, which a lot of Norm fans would say is, when he's at his best, when he's had a moment to prepare, but he hasn't, had, weeks to prepare for like a Letterman shot, Right. So, yeah. And I appreciate that you fall asleep to occasionally hearing me mentioned in a
lot. Fairly often I hear the name Christian as I'm counting sheep. but we'll get to later. We have a clip of Dennis Miller talking about Norm actually working for him on Dennis's first talk show. Mm-hmm. The one he had for the Chicago Tribune or whatever the hell it was. Yes. We'll talk about that a little later. So we're starting with the HBO show when you talk about kind of free reign. This is before Marr had his show there. They were letting a few guys kind of run wild. Chris Rock is one of them. Obviously, Dennis Miller is one of them. I think this show is so perfect for Dennis Miller, the show that they gave him. I'm surprised it honestly didn't last longer. Because I think this fits him so well, where Dennis Miller would just pick a topic every week, and they would have guests on to talk about it, and Norm was the perfect type of guest for that. So let's start with those.
Do you think advertising brings kids to smoking? There's a lot of fights with the Joe Camel thing. Do you think they really?
Yeah, definitely they got it. Because the thing is this, the advertisers, they got to go after kids because they're not going to get adults. Like, there's not going to be a 50-year-old guy going, hey, I should start smoking. Goddamn Camel. Look at him. They got to get little children.
Joe Camel.
Yeah.
That's a frightening looking beast.
He looks like a cock. I didn't make this up.
I know you don't mind first-hand cocks, but...
You don't know that.
The thing I loved about one of the many things I loved about Norm's talk show appearances is like a lot of comics would go on and use some of their material. Like they would say, hey, set me up for this bit that I've worked on and it's going to be in my next special. Norm was doing bits that he would eventually do like 15 years later. Like Norm was kind of using these talk shows, which at that time are a massive platform, to essentially write stand-up. Like you can tell as he's talking there, that could be a future Norm bit. And there's a very famous one we're going to play in a minute that ended up on me doing stand-up. So like it is amazing to watch kind of the opposite of how people utilize talk show appearances to get their best known material out there. Norm was like, let me try something. The topic smoking. Let me try this thing I have about Joe Camel.
He looks like a cock, which is, if you could have like one drop of Norm that's perfect, it's sort of the, I didn't make this up. He looks like a cock,
Yeah. There's he goes on a little more about Joe Camel here.
The thing about Joe Camel looking like a cock, Dennis.
Oh, yeah. I lost my train of thought.
But this is after, that's the other great thing Norm would do. This is after they kind of shifted gears for a minute.
Yeah.
And Norm's like, oh, no, you're not getting away from this. I'm going to continue this thought that I have.
This is what I've noticed. He doesn't even look like a fucking camel. He looks so much like a cock. Because you know how it's usually subliminal?
Yeah.
Where you have to find the cock, right? This character, you have to find the goddamn camel.
That's such a funny. I think a million people have made like Joe Camel looks like a cock or cigarette cock jokes. The idea that he's more cock than camel is one I've never heard before. It's very funny.
Yeah, that's why Dennis obviously had known him for a while at this point. You'll talk about that in a little bit, but you just know that like whatever you're gonna get, it delivers. And the fact that there was a reason why he called into the radio show every week for a better part of a year. It was just because it's like I don't have to worry about that. So you're saying he's the perfect guest because you're like, whatever Norm wants to do, we're going to be fine. Conan had no idea he was going to tell the moth joke, but that's exactly why he's like, great. How soon can Norm be on again after that?
Yeah. And Dennis made a point of that where the show was on for 4 years, I think. And,
which one?
The HBO show.
The HBO show was, I think, 94 through 2001. I'm pretty sure it's 8
was it that long?
Yeah, and it took very long hiatuses.
Okay.
It was like almost like half a year. They did 215 episodes of Dennis Miller Live, and it was the show that like won the Emmy every year, long before The Daily Show would be the show that won. It always won for comedy writing. You didn't even bother really, campaigning for yourself. You shouldn't even submit because Dennis was going to always win that category.
As a quick aside, maybe you know Dennis well enough to kind of enlighten me on this because I've always wondered about this. It seems like Dennis Miller was so suited to be Bill Maher or Jon Stewart before, like at the time that they came, and he never. I mean, he had his time where he was obviously very popular and everything. But when you see like Bill Maher and Jon Stewart take over that late night spot, and when their shows became really big, it seemed like that's when Dennis Miller started to fade away and was content with doing his radio show later in that decade and everything. Why is it? Why didn't he have the same success that those guys did?
It's a great question. He basically was both of those guys before they were, they became the Jon Stewart and the Bill Maher.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, his show ends on HBO, and within about a year, they start doing Real Time with Bill Maher, which is, it's not the same show, but you're definitely speaking to the same audience.
Very similar,
Yeah, and I think some people would say that, Dennis's politics changed after 9/11. But if you were to have watched the last like couple of years of the HBO show, he was kind of leaning in a specific direction, and he definitely spoke out more in favor of issues. He was supportive of George Bush, which was one of those things that the cool kid comedians weren't doing, but he was just like, I support our troops and I support their mission. And, so then I think he got a little bit shunned from that, but, HBO just felt like, they'd done enough of the show.
Yeah.
And he did a show on CNBC between this one and the radio show. He did that for a couple years. And that's when I first started working for him. And the fact that you forgot about it will tell you everything you need to know about the CNBC show that you probably didn't even know about it. Because, so he was still around, but it was like kind of like a little bit of a carbon copy of what had been there before. And it was a funny show. He's well suited to the HBO show. It was perfect because people knew him from Weekend Update on SNL. And he wasn't good. He wasn't comfortable, let me put it that way, of doing the syndicated late night show that he did for the Tribune, because he's not a guy who's like, oh, let's go watch Dennis Miller do a cooking segment,
Right.
So this show was perfect. The guest segment was like less than 10 minutes usually, and he got to make fun of pictures. He did a monologue, and they talked about a topic. So yeah, this was the perfect show for him. And just like to me, Real Time is the perfect show for Bill Maher.
Yeah, I would even make the argument. I think I said this last time we talked about Dennis Miller, that the radio show might actually be the perfect show for him, even though he might be a little lesser known for that. But there was to speak to the political thing too. There was a story that Norm told on the radio show about a writer for that Chicago Tribune show when Norm was a writer on that staff with Drake Sather.
Yes.
There was another writer. I didn't catch his name. I'm not familiar with him. But he was super liberal, and Norm said he would come with 4 or 5 Rush Limbaugh jokes every week, and Dennis Miller would go, actually, I kind of like Rush Limbaugh. I think he makes some points, and this guy would go, "What?" He was outraged by it.
That might be David Feldman, if I had to guess. That's probably
it was Mark something, Mark
Brazil.
Yep, that was it.
Yeah. And if you look at the writing staff of that Tribune show, which was on for like 8 months, the only one that I remember right now, in addition to who we've said, is Judd Apatow. It was like, and the guys who went on to create Will and Grace, they were a writing team. Dennis referred to them as Muchnick and Puchnick, but because he always called them that, I can't think of their real names. So yeah, he assembled, it was kind of like a great writing staff for that. But I think his leanings were kind of evident, even that far back, But he was always funny, and that's what I think people started to miss. Like, well, I don't agree with this guy. There's no way he could ever make me laugh.
Yeah. What's next, Craig? On the HBO show,
David Spade.
Oh yeah, this is the classic appearance. If you're a Norm fan, I'm sure you've seen this clip, but I always like playing it when we can. He was always great with Spade. Dennis Miller had the good sense to double book them. Norm and Spade were on at the same time, and this is they're talking about Viagra and different inventions, and it leads Norm to this thought.
No, just thinking, because they had that Viagra thing out. Yeah. And the other day, Bob Dole came right out and said
he was one of the first.
Yeah. And you don't want to hear about Bob Dole's cock, I mean, President Clinton's cock, Bob Dole's cock, what the hell? But mostly, an old man like that, you don't want him to have a super hard cock. You know what I mean? Why? Because an old man, you want him to be got a pipe going, a newspaper, the dog at his feet there.
Well, that in some corners is considered pipe.
Oh. But now they're going to have
I love Dennis being the straight man for Norm, because he could throw out kind of a purposely corny joke like that. Yes. And Norm's reaction, like he can't believe Dennis would go there.
Dennis, there might be children in the room. I can't believe you just said that. Anyway, his cock is so hard right now.
Some goddamn pill that makes women aroused at the sight of a fucking 70-year-old dude with a super hard cock. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. This Viagra. It's insane. And you know what it's for? Impotent people. All right, for impotent guys. So get this. I read this. The pill can make your cock hard for 4 hours. Right. So now, who has the 4-hour hard cock? The impotent guy. The rest of us are fucked. Me and you got our regular cocks. Meanwhile, fucking Spade is,
Spade.
Oh, man. I didn't see it. I know you didn't. He brought it all around and then a vicious rib kick into his best friend's cock.
Once there's too much cock talk, I try to just zone out for a minute until it goes back the other way.
If there's too much cock talk, this guy has fevered nightmares all night. Dreams, like sweaty, fevered dreams. From the cock talk that's been all over his head.
Why bury me twice? He's killing me.
No, he's a good man.
He's a good man.
Who cares?
That's my favorite, and it's a thing I'm sure I subconsciously adopted. Just the idea of hitting someone like that and going, "Nah, he's a good man."
Yeah.
There's a clip. One of my favorite clips of Norm is him with Kevin Nealon talking about the West Baptist Church or whatever the fuck that is. And I can't say it on this program, but he yells the F word. And Kevin Nealon kind of reacts, and Norm goes, no. I'm just kidding around after this vulgar rant. But what's amazing, too, is Spade is one of the great ball busters in his circle. Spade's a tremendous ball buster. You see it on his appearance with Norm Macdonald Live when they kind of gang up on Adam Egett. Yeah. Which is a clear prelude to. It's almost like Norm was getting ready to one day meet Adam Egett when he goes, too much cock talk. This guy has sweaty, fevered dreams. But David to know to play that role with Norm and not try to out alpha him or out wise ass him, I think it speaks to David's talent also,
Yeah, I know where this episode is about Norm and Dennis, but David Spade has always had a good sense of the value he brings to something.
Yes.
He could have gotten a sitcom where he was the star. He could have gotten a Seinfeld star, but instead he does Just Shoot Me, where he basically walks through a scene, has like just a killer one-liner, and then he keeps moving. That was the perfect role for him, was to be that guy on an ensemble show with a great cast, and he really didn't need the focus. And I think a lot of comedians are like, oh no, John Mulaney sitcom is a perfect example of like, God, he's so funny, why did he do that show?
Right. Yeah, just a direct ripoff of Seinfeld.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But to bring it back to Dennis, because what you said just reminded me of Joe Dirt and Dennis Miller's role in that movie, which was, again, perfect for Dennis Miller. It speaks to Dennis and Phil Hartman were the two guys of this era that did this, where they were like the guy. They were big stars when these younger crop of guys came in. And a lot of people, like Chevy Chase say, could have rebelled against that and been like, fuck you, pay me respect. I'm the star here. Dennis is a guy who totally embraced that and loved these guys, gave them opportunities, and they repaid him with opportunities once they became big. And I think that's so smart, and it's amazing to me more people don't see that, just even from the selfish perspective. Like, one day this might pay off for me, but it seemed like Dennis really appreciated and understood the value those guys brought, rather than being self-conscious about it and insecure about it.
It was like the Opie and Anthony thing, where if people are funny on their show, the Opie and Anthony show is funny. Like, that is
right. If Patrice is funny, you had a good day of the Opie and Anthony show.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, for Dennis, it would be like, oh, it's less heavy lifting if I have on a really funny guest. I'm going to do everything I can. And when it comes to him being supportive of people, he is the one who really pushed Adam Sandler to get on SNL. And the first time anyone ever saw David Spade on a big stage, he was on one of those young comedian specials that they used to do for HBO. And they already had enough comedians. And he said, I really want this guy David Spade on. Take away, 5 of my minutes of stuff. And so that we can squeeze in one more comic. And so he was always very supportive. These guys always appreciated it. And, Dennis's last year at SNL, he was very well known. And he used to walk into the office that had Spade, Farley, Chris Rock, Sandler, and Tim Meadows. And he would just kind of go up and down like a drill instructor and just insult them, and they loved it. They're like, oh my God, this guy knows who I am. And the quote that I would get, he would go through, he had something about everybody. You go to Chris Rock, and then he would get to Tim Meadows and be like, and you, I mean, you're not even angry, so why are you here? So.
I think we have one more clip from the HBO show.
Yeah, them talking about San Francisco.
Yeah, so this is another, the ED bit and this, I think both became bits, I don't know, 15 years later, 13 years later, something like that, on me doing stand-up. So he was like working on them for that long before he put them out there. But this is like an early stage where it feels like one of the first times he said this was to Dennis Miller.
Now, Norm, have you ever done anything in your long and storied career that you consider specifically to be in bad taste as you look back on it? Maybe at the time you thought it was a good play, but you look back on it and you think that was in bad taste.
Well, sometimes, like in stand-up, I'll do jokes that are like one time I was doing this thing in San Francisco, and they were all gay people in the audience. They told me, so I figured I'd
in San Francisco.
Yeah.
No.
So I figured I'd do stuff about gay people so that they could relate to it.
Yeah, it's warm up. They love that.
And so I was talking about, because I went to this gay pride parade, and I saw in it there were these old men and old ladies like with these signs that said, "We are proud of our gay son." And so I was saying, that's an odd thing to be proud of, because it's not an achievement, it's not like something you work all your life to be gay or anything like that. And I just wondered, I had a hard time believing that these 50, 60-year-old men are actually bragging, at work, like they're, hey, Bill, my kid, oh my God, we're proud of him, Johnny. He graduated from Harvard, first in his class, you know what I mean? Now he's articling over at a law firm, and, oh yeah, he loves cock.
It's such a smart, because at that time it would be so easy to do just like blatantly anti-gay stuff, because it was a time where that was starting to be more accepted in the culture. So it would be funny to try and take the opposite stance. Norm doesn't even really do that. He's just saying like it's a neutral stance, but it's saying that specific comment, "I'm proud of my gay son," doesn't make any sense. It's not an achievement. That's such a brilliant dissection of language. It's almost like Seinfeldian, but it's actually funny, you know?
Yeah, I mean, he's not taking the stance like, oh, he should be ashamed of his gay son. It's more
Exactly.
like, yeah, like Harvard, that doesn't even matter. But I'll tell you this, he loves cock.
Yes.
He can't get enough cock in his mouth. His ass is always cock. I got a picture of the boy here sucking another man's cock.
To watch the maturation of you as an artist, to realize it took you 9.5 minutes to get around to the sucking cock stuff. It's beautiful to see you comfortable in your own skin, Normie.
It's almost verbatim from me doing stand-up too.
Yeah, and I've always liked this version better.
Me too.
And I think that might have to do with Dennis just kind of letting him do whatever he wants. And it seems more organic than when he does it, like I said, 14 years later or whatever it is. But yeah, I'm glad he ended up putting it on the special, because I think it's a hilarious bit.
Oh yeah.
And even 15 years later, it's still a unique take. You know what I mean? Like in that time, no one did a bit like that really. But what you hear at the end there too is what I love about Dennis in these clips, where you get the sense he really does appreciate watching Norm grow. Where like when Dennis found him, he was doing slightly more generic bits that still had this odd twist on them. Like they had Norm's imprint on them, but they weren't full Norm yet. And this was full Norm. And Dennis watching that, you can tell like he actually really loves watching that maturation.
Yeah, I mean, the example that he uses is a very well-known Norm joke. The thing that he noticed was, imagine being the dog of a homeless guy.
We'll get there. I have
Yeah,
that later.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, and but yes, he was always he's just like, this guy thinks like nobody else, and I
Yes.
think any of us who enjoyed the Bob Saget roast realize, oh yeah, Norm is definitely on a different level than everyone else. Plenty of funny people in that room, but nobody saw the world the way Norm did.
No, and even once, Norm is an interesting guy where it's impossible to replicate him, even now that he's laid out the blueprint. Like on the James Franco roast, Andy Samberg essentially did Norm's bit.
Yeah.
It was a little more like, oh, I'll compliment these guys more than insult them. But it was basically Norm's bit, and it wasn't nearly as funny. Part of that is because Norm did it a few years earlier. But I think really it just shows like, you might look at what Norm does, particularly in that Saget roast. You might look at it and say, oh, so all he did was tell old-time jokes? Anyone could do that. But when you hear someone else do it, it doesn't have the same... Norm's delivery and his ability to shape things, even that have been done to death, there's no one else that was able to replicate it.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're getting into the radio show now, right?
That is correct.
All right, Christian, feel free to pontificate. I know you were there. It's very important to you.
Well, I'm in those clips. But, one thing I want to mention, and I looked it up to make sure I get it word for word correct. You did mention that Norm was one of the writers on Dennis's Tribune late night syndicated show.
Yeah.
And he loved Norm. He thought Norm was so funny. So he had them reach out and said, we'll have him put together a packet of jokes, which anybody is trying to work for a late.
Oh, I have this story too.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, so you have.
We're ending with Dennis.
You have that joke.
Yeah.
Okay, then I won't spoil it. I'm sorry. I should have been in the pre-show meeting.
My apologies.
No. I wanted to make sure that joke was included because it's so funny.
Yeah, we'll
yeah. Okay. But yes, so we do the radio show, and Dennis is like, "Oh, let's get Norm to call in," and then it very quickly was like, can Norm come back next week? And then it was just agreed upon, like, great, whatever. I don't even remember what day it was now. I think it was Fridays. It was a nice way to ease into the weekend. Let's have Norm on. And that was a treat for me because I would call Norm the day before and be like, Norm, what do you want to talk about tomorrow? And about 90 minutes after I asked that question, I'm like, Norm, I really have to get going. And I know it might sound crazy that I was getting Norm Macdonald off the phone.
Yeah.
And, if these calls were happening in this day and age, I probably would have been like, Norm, I need to record this from my notes.
I would have just gotten fired. I'd be like, yeah, sorry, I was on the phone with Norm for 4 hours yesterday.
Right, exactly. So it was great. And, he very rarely would cover the topics that he and I had talked about the day before. He would try stuff out.
Oh, we will we'll lay that out because you come up a lot in some of these clips.
I sure do.
What's the first one, Craig?
Letterman and Regan.
Okay, yeah. So they start out, and I just included this because I thought it was a nice homage to Brian Regan and also the stuff that Norm did involving David Letterman. So this is one of Norm's early appearances on the radio.
All right, folks, we are about to be joined by a comedy genius, legitimate, 4 stars, my highest approval rating, if I am to be the David Horowitz of comedy, give the ratings. I've always thought he was a genius. I met him when he was younger, but I remember the true moment where I thought this guy is an absolute genius. He used to do a parody of Letterman, which was so side-splittingly insightful and funny on Saturday Night Live. And my favorite moment was he had somehow gleaned that Letterman was so ill at ease with being Letterman that immediately, he might not do it now, but way back when, the millisecond the show was over, Letterman would take his jacket off and almost fling it and flee the stage. And that was Norm's payoff on the bit. And I remember seeing it and thinking, that is one of the most brilliant comedy moments that I had seen in a long time. Norm!
Man, I found out you and I like the same guy.
Why is that?
It's like 2 girls talking.
So we're the same guy because we're like 2 girls talking.
No, they would say you and I like the same guy,
Exactly.
It's Dennis. It's Brian Regan. I mean.
Oh yeah,
isn't that guy amazing? I've been talking about him forever, and all these other bad guys get TV shows.
Right.
And he's the funniest guy ever, and he's on the road. But now he's doing big arenas and stuff.
Yeah, something's going to happen there, Norm, because it's like Tim Allen. Remember, Tim used to fill the arenas, then the next thing you know, he got his payoff. That's going to happen with Regan. Does anybody make you laugh hard? I mean, I'm in danger when I watch it.
I know, it's crazy. And he's the kind of guy you want to bring people to,
Well, Norm, you have that in you.
It's impossible to be so funny and not dirty, so...
Well, you have that in you. You were the most booked guest I had on my 9-year run on HBO because... you used to just kill me, man. You have that ability to waste me. So.
Oh my God.
I was impressed with that because a lot of these, particularly the earlier ones, are very short segments, maybe 6 minutes at most sometimes. And Dennis was able to have this kind of in-depth comedy conversation with Norm where they talk about Brian Regan and why he isn't popular and the nuance of his Letterman bit. And Dennis was able to fit these incredibly short segments that would seem impossible to get anything done in. So I will have some of the more outrageous bits that Norm gets into, but I also like kind of the subdued conversation they would have.
Yeah, and some would say that might be one of the problems with the art form of traditional broadcast radio is that yes, you have these 6 minutes, but make sure you break when you're supposed to because they have to get to traffic and weather on the ones.
Yeah, there would Norm would get going and Dennis would go, Norm, we got a break, and he'd go, what? I just started. What?
Next, we have Fourth Wall.
Yeah, so I think this is where we start to hear Christian not, shirking his duties, obviously not prepping Norm correctly to the show.
You know what show I would like to see you host, Norm? And this is the God's truth. I would like to see you host To Catch a Predator. I see that as being a good medium for you. What's your thoughts on the To Catch a Predator show?
Oh, no, you just brought that up because I was telling that guy earlier I was thinking of that show, To Catch a Predator.
Well, thank you for unfolding my conceit here. I was trying to get you into the area you wanted to talk about.
That was like a crazy coincidence because I just talked to that Christian dude about that.
Jesus, Norm, could you use this anymore?
Okay, I'm sorry.
It was a setup. I was putting the ball on the tee. I'm Cheech Marin.
It's not even nice.
Now go ahead, knock it off.
You're like Ed McMahon.
Yeah, exactly. Until you expose me.
Remember
This is what, Christian? Probably like 06 or something like that?
The radio show started in 07. So this is probably late 07. It could be 2008, but I'm pretty sure it's late 2007.
So by this time, Norm's been doing talk shows for over 15 years.
Yes, definitely.
That's the beauty of Norm, is he so perfectly plays where, like, if you're not thinking about it, you just listen to him and believe him, that you kind of like fucked him over in some way. Yeah, you're just bringing that up because that Christian guy was asking me about
it. Like, that was our private conversation about To Catch a Predator,
And what's funny too is it just led him into a totally different bit. I think that's the same call where he goes, why is it you see a lot of guys named Christian? You never see a guy named Jewish.
Yeah.
Just like corny bits that he would do.
He always thought that was funny. Because I first met him, I was an intern at SNL, and I would answer the phone, and he found out my name was Christian, and he thought it was funny. So then when I would answer, he was looking for somebody who worked in the department as an intern, and he'd be like, "Hey, is this Jew?" And the first time I'm like, oh, okay. And he kind of camped out on that bit. It's like, yep, he was very dedicated to that running bit. So then it comes to him in the course of this phone call. He's like, I'm having this thought for the first time that nobody's named Jew.
And what are those phone calls like when he's talking about, say, To Catch a Predator and claiming he has this bit? Is there any indication that, like, oh, he's probably not going to do this when Dennis brings it up, or is he like really selling you on the idea that he wants to talk about this?
Yeah, no, and I won't pretend to remember what we talked about To Catch a Predator, but I guarantee it was really funny. So I would give Dennis, like, here's bullet points for what you should ask Norm about, and very rarely were any of those topics actually discussed. And I think Dennis stopped bringing them up. This was a very natural talk show, especially a short form radio talk show. It's like, what do you think about that To Catch a Predator show?
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was very funny. And no, I didn't think he was going to be like, oh yeah, make sure you don't tell Dennis these things. He knew why we were talking.
Right. And again, to compliment Dennis too, is like he rolled with them very well. It's what I always liked about those Conan appearances. Is like I think they almost appreciated being called, because Dennis is a comic. So it was probably almost cringeworthy to him that he had to be like, hey, tell me about To Catch a Predator. Wouldn't you be good hosting that? So to be called out like that is almost a relief to a guy like Dennis, I imagine.
Yes, I think you're right.
Next we have bombing.
Yeah, so Norm was there's a bunch of clips of Norm being like, oh, I suck on this show. And Dennis has to reassure him he's killing harder than anyone.
Yes.
Bomb. Let's not kill ourselves.
No, it didn't bomb. No, are you kidding me? It was gold. It was just about. I was listening to you unspole the gold.
I mean, sometimes when you're on radio, you go, man, maybe people are just laughing in the studio because that's their job.
Mm-hmm.
But people at home are not enjoying it at all, so you feel bad about yourself.
Well, the bit was volatile.
When the guys in the studio also clearly not responding to anything, and then they go, now the funniest was in the commercial, I said, so he goes, you got to wrap it up in a minute, the Predator thing, like I'm... So I said, I don't know. It's not really a thing. I don't know if I can wrap it up. So he said, I don't think it's going well.
You didn't say that to him, did you?
I didn't say that. I said it was going great. We were all laughing so hard we couldn't breathe.
We're ill-serving Norm today. The next time we have Norm on, I'm going to say, this is Norm, and let him go.
No, this is it, Dennis. I said, how long's your show run generally, because I listen to it on the internet and stuff like that.
Right.
And he said 3 hours. And he goes, your second segment's up. And I go, what was my first segment, by the way? He goes, that was like 6 minutes. That was your big one. The 3 hour show.
Well, we've been gaslighting you, Norm. We brought you in here in a deliberate effort to drive you crazy. You sound suitably perplexed now, but might I tell you, you're simply the most insightful, perplexed man I've ever met. We'll have you back. Let's have Norm back and give him a full half.
It's such a Norm point to be like, how long is the show? And you're like, 3 hours. And he's like, why do I have 6 minutes? You're telling me to wrap it up.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's funny because I know about these compilations, but believe it or not, I don't actually scour them to hear the parts where he talks to me. So it is very funny to, whatever we had just talked about during the commercial break between his two segments, he's like, yeah, Christian told me that I only have 1 minute, which is not what I would have said. But
his impression of you is like as if you're like a task man. 1 minute, like you're angry about it.
Well, I knew my role was to keep that Macdonald fellow on task. He's a bit of a meanderer. If I had been there when he was telling the moth joke, I would have given him kind of the wrap it up signal. I would have probably had to like really get his attention to make sure, like, all right, Norm, come on, let's go.
Yeah, you're in it enough that if you go watch these compilations on YouTube. And you listen to them, you're like, oh, Christian actually was on this show. He's not lying.
Yeah, I didn't come up with this to try and impress Carl Hamburg.
Yeah, he's actually there. What's next, Craig?
Next, we have Weekly Spot.
Yeah, so this is when it became a weekly spot, and you said that lasted maybe 6 months to a year, give or take?
Yeah, and I'm not even quite sure why it fell apart. It wasn't, the suit said less Norm. That it wasn't anything like that. Right. I think it was just, he was busy a couple weeks, and then I think Dennis started to feel like, all right, I don't want to make him feel like he has to come on every week. Yeah,
right. That makes sense. But that's what I love about the idea of this segment is like usually it's some weekly spot that's jammed down your throat because of a sponsor or a relationship with the bosses or whatever. And I don't know how many of those Dennis had, if he had any, but the idea of having Norm Macdonald every week is such an interesting idea that no one else would have done in regular radio because I don't even really know why. It's not that I don't even think that's an instance of radio being afraid. It's just them being completely uncreative. So it took someone like Dennis to be like, well, let's just have a Norm on every week. He's always funny.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it was that simple. It was like, yeah, let's just always have him on. And it was easy for Norm to just, pick up the phone. And so I think it worked really well. And yeah, I think he traditionally isn't necessarily somebody you think like, how much you love Norm Macdonald's stand-up specials. Well, what if you could hear him for only 6 minutes, go away for 5 minutes, and then he has 8 more,
Right.
So.
Time for his weekly segment. Christian tells me that he's a sense memory guy, Norm is, and we had a request to do Letterman earlier, and evidently Norm was listening on his computer to the podcast, and he heard that request, but he has to go right to the Letterman right off the bat because he cannot summon it up instantly. He has to go back and, ramp up to it. So he will join us, I believe, now as David Letterman, Norm Macdonald.
As David Letterman, you want me to do it?
Christian just told me he wanted to do it right off the bat.
So, because I did David Letterman on Saturday Night Live, even though the O.J. Simpson trial started yesterday, and I was also famous for, I think, much more famous for the O.J. stuff.
All right.
He was wrong-headed.
He's arguing with himself.
Clearly, I tried to discourage him from talking about OJ because I was always a big Donald Meyer guy. I was looking out for my buddy.
That's good. That's good of you. So now what he's done, I don't know how well you remember this specific interaction, Christian, but like now what he's done, before it was, I'm just going to talk about To Catch a Predator and make him think I have a bit about this. Now he deliberately set you up to be like, hey, I need to, it doesn't make sense if I don't do Letterman. And then when Dennis calls for it, he's like, Letterman? Why would I do that?
Yeah, I think it's good that you picked up on the similarity between him talking to Spade and later Adam Egget. It's clearly I'm getting the same thing. It's like yeah, this is what I want to talk about.
He finds someone, and that's going to be the guy that I bust his balls.
Yeah, he's like, can you believe what this son of a bitch wanted me to go on the radio and talk about? What's wrong with your producer? He's an idiot, Dennis.
Compromise. Look, I'm a big believer in compromise. You know that, Dennis.
Sure, I do. You're a mediator.
Yeah, man. I like to think of myself that way. And how about if I do my Joe Piscopo doing David Letterman?
Perfect.
Okay, here it is. How does it go? Okay, it goes my, phone the neighbors, wake the children. You won't want to make this one. Something like that.
Well, it's absolute gold.
By the way, if you've ever seen when Piscopo used to do Letterman, Norm just did a spot-on impression of Piscopo's impression.
It's
of
amazing,
Letterman.
and that's what it was all for, was to slam Joe Piscopo. For no reason.
Yeah. Which at this point, Joe Piscopo's like, "Hey, what the fuck did I do?"
Piscopo hasn't been on anyone's radar in 20 years at this point. And if you, to any Opie and Anthony fans, I know people that watch this show, a lot of them are O&A fans. If you've ever heard the Joe Piscopo beatings, you've heard his Letterman. And you know how perfect that is. And Norm was evidently at the forefront of mocking that, which is very funny that Piscopo would even be on his mind at this time. But
Are there many appearances of Norm with Opie and Anthony? I know
only one.
Okay, because I knew he would do Stern a lot, and I think a lot of times you had to kind of pick which one of those.
Yeah, he only did it once to promote, I think, Sports Show, and Colin Quinn also happened to be in. And it's the only time Norm was ever in on O&A. I think he would have had fun with those guys, but
yeah, but I'm pretty sure it was one of those. You know, he probably ran it by Gary and was like, "Listen, I really need to promote this show." And Howard was probably like, "Yeah, I get it," but he was usually Howard's guy. Those appearances were great, but I was just thinking about, I've never heard him on Opie and Anthony. I would imagine he would have a great time.
Norm and Patrice
with Anthony and Jimmy, at least.
Norm and Patrice would have been really interesting interactions.
Totally,
it's a shame we didn't get those, but.
Next, we have Norm hosting.
Yeah, so this is one you sent me. And again, credit to Dennis for, I assume this was his call probably to have Norm sit in.
Yeah.
You would not, because that's like there's a lot of political talk on Dennis. I don't know how you'd describe it. I don't know if you'd say it's a political show, but there was a fair amount of political talk, right?
Yeah, it was. The show was sold, because he was known for talking about the news, obviously from SNL and HBO, and that hot CNBC show everybody was talking about.
Yes.
So the show was sold as, it was on your conservative talk channel. He could sometimes in good markets, we would be on at the same station as Limbaugh or Hannity, Bill O'Reilly, all those shows. But Dennis was like, yeah, I'll talk about all those things, but basically I'm a comedian. So, the segments were very stream of consciousness sometimes. And, radio program directors didn't always know what to make of him, but we would get like great guests. We'd have great comedians on, and, we'd get like a Tom Hanks appearance once a year whenever he had a new movie. So people were like, okay, great. They can bring this. So to Dennis's mind, it was an entertainment show, but there were political slant during some of the 3 hours.
Yeah, probably not enough politics for a political junkie like that's listening to Rush Limbaugh, but more than like someone like me would seek out or something.
Right, and not to break it down too much, but Limbaugh's fans were proudly refer to themselves as ditto heads because Rush says this. These are the things I believe. There's no one who would listen to Dennis and be like, oh, yeah, all the things he says are what I believe, because he's all over the place. He's very liberal on social issues, conservative in the military, and he wanted to, pay less taxes. So there wasn't anybody who'd listen and be like, yep. So that you do need to kind of follow the talking points to have like tremendous success. Yeah, we did all right. We had more than 300 stations at one point, and we did the show for about 8 years, 2007 to 2015.
Yeah.
And Dennis said he was on HBO for 9 years. So I think we see what the shelf life is for a Dennis Miller show. 8 or 9 years.
Yeah, right, exactly. So yeah, I thought ballsy move to let Norm host because it seems so untraditional, especially when you have a guest like Ann Coulter. So this is
and I'm sorry, this was that was your real question. Yeah, it was Dennis's idea. He's like, let's ask Norm to host. He's so funny on the show,
which is very smart. And this is a side of Norm you don't really get to hear all that often. Is kind of serious Norm.
Joining me now is nationally syndicated columnist and the author of If Democrats Had Any Brains, They'd Be Republicans. Ann Coulter. Hey, welcome to the show, Ann. How you doing?
Fine, thanks. I saw you on O'Reilly last night. You were magnificent.
That's nice of you to say, but I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. And I'm not used to satellites. You must have done a lot of those.
Oh, yeah. No, you never get used to that.
Yeah, I got all confused. But it's really fun to talk to you.
Thank you. I'm a huge fan.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. That's nice.
All right, Normie.
Now,
I hate when guests say that, but I am.
Oh, that's nice. A pretty girl like you. What do you do for guys? I've always heard that dudes are afraid of strong women. Do you ever?
Yeah, well, maybe weak men are, but that's not really what I'm in the market for.
Okay, and let's start with this Iowa. They're all caucusing. Any thoughts on that? I don't know.
Yeah.
I left that part in deliberately because it's my favorite part. When I'm like, Norm's gonna host a political show. What's that gonna sound like? And they're caucusing in Iowa. That perfectly summarized how Norm as a political host went.
Yes, exactly. It was a lot of that, and I think he wanted Ann Coulter on, and because she would be on regularly, and yeah, I mean, and you can hear it. People remember this segment because of the way that Ann talks to Norm. But you just heard him. He's like, "Oh, pretty girl like you," So.
They're smitten with each other. There's a lot of flirting going on here.
In the movies, they call this a meet cute. Mike.
Yes, yeah. And Norm, that's the interesting thing about Norm is like, I think he was clearly probably a Republican, right? Just based on breadcrumbs that he's left over the years. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably one of those guys that if you really got him to tell you the truth, he's like, well, I'm an independent, but
But it's not overt. And it's his takes on, like, he talks about abortion in a really interesting way, in a way I don't necessarily agree with. He's pro-life instead of pro-choice, but his argument for it's not even really political. It's like he lays it out in a way where you're like, oh, this is really smart. I don't know that it would work on political radio because it's almost too reasonable and even keeled, but him as like a actual talk show host is interesting. Like his conversation with Ann here was actually very interesting.
Yeah, no, exactly. And there's flirting mixed in, but it's true that he's making real points, and you're like, oh yeah, you're seeing what he really thinks about this issue because he's, not just because he's trying to impress a pretty girl.
Right. What's next, Craig?
Him talking about hosting SNL.
Yeah, I think this is the one that Sudeikis was on. That this is it's interesting because you sent me this also, but it's a clip I've listened to a bunch over the years, and Jason Sudeikis is like a fly on the wall in two moments I love. Just this interview, just any interview with Norm, I guess is one I love. And Sudeikis was also there for the famous Artie Lang Joe Buck appearance. So he's popped up in these weird comedy interviews where he's just kind of the other guy watching these legends talk.
Yeah, this is when Sudeikis was still on SNL, so he was usually in New York. He happened to be in LA. Dennis very rarely came into the studio, and he didn't really want to do a thing where he'd have a lot of guests in, but he's like, well, see if you can get Norm to come by. And you can see that Norm really dressed to the nines for the occasion because he's got on a red hoodie and a Milwaukee Brewers hat. And I hear from people all the time, including I was messaged by you once upon a time about this. The people are shocked. That's like, what are you doing in this clip? And I say exactly the same thing. I do not. One of these things is not like the other. I should not be in the studio for this, but I was honored to be there.
Christian demanded I pull this clip because he's like, I'm in the background.
Please zoom in on when you see me. Can you mute Norm and just really do one of those behind the music pans and zoom in?
Hosting, and there was three guys.
I've never hosted. How many times have you hosted?
Just one time. It was a mistake.
Did it not go well?
It was all right.
Did you do update?
No.
You didn't even do update?
It was right after I got fired from update. I thought it'd be funnier back then. But anyway, so there were three guys doing music. And I don't know music. I just know old music. Like again, Lauren would go, "Who do you like?" And I go, "You like this guy."
Bobby Goldsboro.
Bobby Goldsboro. Eddie Cantor, is he around? And let her go, you've got to go, So
who'd they have on?
So they had hip guys that everyone else knew except me. It was Snoop Dogg. He just changed his name, and he was angry because I kept getting it wrong. It used to be Snoop Doggy Dogg. It was Snoop Dogg and Eminem and Dr. Dre.
That's a pretty heavy lineup.
Yeah, but to me, it was two black guys and a white guy. So I go to introduce them.
You're beautiful.
And they were all
just trying to get this into the barn. Don't go black white on.
They were all standing like in rap.
There was Francis Farmer. They were about to go up and take me with them.
They were standing in rap positions, as you know, like against, and I'm about to introduce them. So they're standing in that rap position where it looks like they'll either start singing rap or pull a gun and kill you. So then I go, as a joke, I look at them, because I remember this is kind of a Letterman-y thing to do, but I go, fellas, are you ready? Are you ready? Which forces them to go like shake their heads slightly. Even though they're in this crazy danger.
All posed up.
All posed up. So I thought that was funny. But then I learned later they were geniuses and I should have befriended them.
There's so much there I appreciate about Norm. Mainly the idea of telling that story where he's being hilarious, but the punchline is basically these guys are legends, and I should have been nice to them and gotten into their inner circle. And that's the real punchline of that story, which is very funny. But what stands out to me about that clip and that interview, because the other clips we played are kind of like Norm doing bits, like fucking with you and Dennis and the whole idea of the show. And then he can, drift right into telling a very interesting behind-the-scenes type of story in a very serious and vulnerable way. And that's a difficult needle to thread, because a lot of guys you'll watch that do both things, that kind of play a character and will also be themselves. You're kind of like, pick one. Hey, I either like the silly guy, or I like when you're honest and truthful. You're bad at this bit stuff. The amazing thing about Norm is that he can be whatever version of himself he wants to be, and it's always funny, which is unbelievable.
Right, and if you, as the host, were to try to get him to pick one of those, he would certainly go with one of the other norms.
Exactly.
He's like, I can't deliver that, so yes.
Right, because when it became a thing, even on Conan, like he loved Conan, but even when Conan would be like, all right, you've done the silly thing a few times, let me try to get you into one of these silly bits, he'd go, what? What do you mean? Why would I talk about that?
Yeah, well, even in what is, arguably the greatest TV talk show appearance of all time is, Courtney Thorne-Smith talking about the Carrot Top movie. Even then, Conan's like, hey, you got anything for that? And he's like, oh, yeah, actually, I do. Chairman of the board.
I've got a brilliant line ready if you want it.
B-O-R-E-D. And Conan's like, all right, I have to give up. It's unbelievable. This guy's unstoppable.
Yeah.
Next, we have Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah. So you recommended this to me.
Yes.
I had never heard it before. It's a little longer clip.
Yes.
But it's Norm talking about Thanksgiving. And this is what I'm saying, where it's like, this is a guy you could sit down and interview for an hour and just get behind the scenes stories and stories about his life, or he could just come on and do a wacky bit, and they're both equally enjoyable.
Yes, they are.
I got a list of things that I'm thankful for. Every year I make them on the day before Thanksgiving.
Right.
So I can make a little speech,
Right.
And I like it if you'll have me to read my list.
Yeah, I'm going to not even interrupt you. You take your time.
Well, firstly, I'm thankful for the fine ladies who live across this country and leave pies on their windowsills, so an old chunk of coal like me might have a meal from time to time. I'm thankful for all of my 5 children, especially the one that I like. I'm thankful for the simple things in life, like bread. Although I've never tried it myself, I hear it's quite good. I'm very thankful for the brave man who pulled me from a burning building last April and unfortunately perished in the process. I'll never forget him. I don't remember his name, but I think he had a mustache. I'm thankful for being able to do stand-up comedy for a living, There's nothing more gratifying than to step on a stage before a quiet crowd and with my comedy slowly turn them into an unruly mob. I'm thankful for women, the greatest creatures on earth, because without women, Dennis, there would be no cookies. I'm glad that this year the police finally solved the baffling murder of Margot Hemingway.
It's a ridiculous list.
And finally, what I'm most thankful for, of course, is serious, is friends. Yes, friends. Especially that one where Joey buys Chandler a duck. That's the one I like the best.
I don't even think we punctuate that. I think it is such a beautiful list that we appreciate you calling in. We are thankful for your continued patronage here, and you have a good time in Hawaii. Thanks to me, my friend.
Yeah, give my love to your family, buddy.
Dennis just hangs up on him after that.
No, and I think that's the right move too, because it's like,
Yes.
what are we going to do after that? You know.
Well, it speaks to what I think is a brilliant move that a lot of people would get in the way of. Is Dennis clearly saw after a bunch of Norm appearances, there's so many chances for Dennis to go, "What do you mean by that, Norm?" And he's like, "No, I know the bit now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just let him fly."
Yeah. And he does always turn a phrase like no one else. An old chunk of coal like me, which I believe this isn't the only time he ever described himself that way. But it's so funny that he's just, waxing poetic, by the fireside with the family gathered around. It's like a Norman Rockwell painting with Norm in the middle, talking about cocks.
It is funny. I started listening to Billy Ray Schaefer recently because I heard Norm say he liked him. And he literally has a song called "I'm Just an Old Chunk of Coal."
Yeah.
And now I think of Norm every time it pops up on Spotify.
Yeah, Billy Joe Schaefer. And
Billy Joe Schaefer.
One of the times that he guest hosted, we had Billy Joe on. I don't think he'd ever been on national radio before or since. But he was legitimately a huge fan.
Billy Ray Schaefer, for those people wondering why I made that Freudian slip, Billy Ray Schaefer is the character in Sam Tallent's book, which I think they're making a movie out of, which I'm very excited for. Running the Light. I recommend a book on this program, but Running the Light is one of them. So check that out.
Well, if there's an audio book, I'll check it out.
No, there is. That's the only way. How do you think I read it?
I thought Craig read it to you.
Those are nice moments when he does that.
Yeah.
Whatever I can do to help.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, we're coming to the last and maybe my favorite bit from Dennis Miller's radio program.
Puppets?
Yes, that's right. This is him talking about the puppets, and then we have a little more after this. But this is him just kind of describing the puppet bit.
Dennis talks about it to this day. People will still be like, yeah, I love when Norm used to come on, especially when he talk about the puppets.
Yes.
This is if you could take anything away from 8 years of radio, it's Norm's puppets.
This is just a little taste. He gives you a summary of each of his supposed puppets.
Norm, the last time I talked to you, you were working with a puppet. Does that still hold true?
Right. They're not called puppets, man.
Oh, I'm sorry. What are they?
Ventriloquist dummies. And even that is a little apathetic. But
what would you imagine they'd like to be called in a perfect?
Well,
world?
I call them my friends.
Yeah.
My friends in the bag. Christian wanted me to do this, but I don't know where that bag is.
Christian, why did you demand he do
that? And I should have insisted he find the bag of imaginary puppets somewhere at his house.
He's on the radio doing a ventriloquist bit. Like people dream of being that meta. Like it really is brilliant.
Your Rat Pack in there.
I had my regular guy Brad. He's just my buddy, And then I got this old man, and I had trouble with him. He's too cranky.
Right.
And it turned out I don't even want to mention what he believed.
And weren't you also?
I'll spoil it for you. He was a Holocaust denier. That puppet.
I believe that puppet's name was Old Jackson.
It later became Adam Egget, if I'm not mistaken.
It was a Holocaust denier.
Chippewa girl?
Now, that one was too expensive. I wish I could find my Richard Nixon doll, because now they have that Frost-Nixon debate.
Yes.
And I did Richard Nixon doll.
Uh-huh.
Now I'm calling him a doll, but he's somewhere. But I haven't even started working with him on the road because I'm not very good at it yet.
This was never a thing he did. It was only for Dennis Miller, to my knowledge, that he ever did this. And it didn't even dawn on me when I said he's doing this meta bit where he's doing a ventriloquist act on the radio. That doesn't describe it correctly. He's doing a ventriloquist act on the radio he's on the phone.
Yes.
So even to the people in the room, it means nothing.
Yes, exactly.
So there is, I think maybe the most popular one is the Holocaust denier.
Yep.
But I enjoyed Rusty. He brought on Rusty, and it seemed like that was one of Dennis's favorites too, based on his reaction.
Now, where are you going here? You're going to Cobb's in San Francisco, January 9th through 11th. Three-day set there. What do you like to do during the days in San Fran to unwind? Do you go?
I just work on my ventriloquism.
Oh, how's that going, Norm?
It's going great, man. I thought Rusty and I would do a little holiday song for you.
Oh, you're kidding me. Let me kick back here and put my feet up in front of the fire. You and Rusty. Which puppet is Rusty? Refresh me.
Rusty's just my friend. You know, I'm having a lot of trouble with my cranky old man. I don't know if you remember old Alec Majerison, the virulent anti-Semite.
Yeah, sure, I remember. What are you kidding me? I have a plaque commemorating my first meeting.
I'm trying to get rid of that guy because you know he's a Holocaust denier. That's no secret. He's an enthusiastic Holocaust denier, and I've had it up to here with this character. You know, the man, he's just a waste of wood. But I don't know what to do. One of my Jewish friends suggested that, why don't I just throw them in a fire and burn them? But I say two wrongs don't make a right.
Gotta go.
But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. Let me get Rusty out here. Rusty, say hello to Dennis. Hey, Dennis, how are you?
Hey, Rusty.
What?
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to relate to people that don't get Norm's brilliance. Because like I said this when Shane hosted the ESPYs a few weeks ago. I'm like, people forget as much as people love that Norm ESPY appearance. Like he bombed in the room also, similarly to I guess how they say that Shane did. And but like I don't understand people that don't get what Norm was doing. But then when I hear this, I'm like, I suppose if you're going in completely cold and you just hear a guy on the radio doing puppets, you're like, I don't get why Dennis is in such hysterics. But Norm is just so over the top in his delivery. I can't imagine not getting why this is so hilarious. But let's hear a little more from Rusty.
Who's the dummy here, me or you?
It's me.
It sounds like it's you.
I'm sorry, Rusty. Let me give you my man voice. Hey, Rusty, how are you doing?
Yeah, dummy. Hey, come on now, Rusty. That's ridiculous. Calling Dennis Miller a dummy on his own radio program.
No, can I jump in here for a second and tell you, here's how crazy Norm is. I'm sitting here believing that he actually has a puppet. Like, it's not enough for him to fake the puppet act on the radio and over the phone. You did pull out a puppet and have it on your arm right now, don't you?
Of course I have my pal Rusty here.
When Dennis said that, it was a jaw drop. I was like, "Oh my god!" I pictured him with a puppet.
Yeah,
it didn't even dawn. I'm like, he probably doesn't have the puppet. Yeah. I just pictured him with a puppet.
Wait, there's no bag. There's no puppets in the bag.
Why would there be? But that's my favorite one because you hear the joy that Dennis is having.
Yes,
and he's such a serious, kind of sardonic guy that's kind of a rare moment to hear him just purely giggling like that. I found so great.
And but I want to shout out, you'll hear a laugh in there. That is a man named David Weiss, who Dennis Miller called Salmon because he thought he looked like Salman Rushdie. He was the co-host of the radio show for the first 2 years. He has a tremendous laugh, which is why Dennis always wanted him. So hearing him also dying with the three of us. I wasn't really on mic. I was in another room. So, so it just adds to it to hear that Salmon laughter throughout all of this.
Yeah, no, I love the puppet bit, and I also like what Norm would do is kind of like so many people when they have success at something, like just run it into the ground and do it everywhere, and not even big like stuff that kind of takes off. I even mean little stuff like if you listen to enough comedy podcasts, how many times have you heard guys tell the same story? Like I love Big J, but how many times have you heard Big J tell the same story on Legion of Skanks, on The Bonfire, when he's a guest on podcasts? It's like the amount of guys that run things into the ground and they almost forget that they told it somewhere else. Norm had a different bag of tricks for every different radio show. He had the thing that he did with Conan, like those old-timey jokes. He had these bits with Dennis. He had his Letterman thing, which is a little more like real Norm, I think, because he admired Letterman so much. Like he had these different bags that he would go to depending upon who he was talking about, which is, again, so impressive.
Yes, as Norm would say, he wore many hats.
Certainly did.
Now we're at the fly on the wall with Dana Carvey.
Yeah, so this is what Christian was talking about earlier. We usually close with Norm, and I figured since this is an episode about Norm, we'll close with Dennis Miller instead, kind of paying tribute to the late, great Norm Macdonald and telling the Fly on the Wall podcast guys about how he discovered Norm.
Norm was like Andy Kaufman if he could have written jokes. You know, it wasn't all. Unless I loved Andy, but it was theater pieces. Norm was like that. Yeah, but he had such
weirdo with
agile.
jokes.
You know, the first time I heard about Norm was I was doing HBO. No, I had a talk show that was syndicated.
Oh yeah,
and somebody said that there was a new kid from Canada, and they had glimpsed him at the Improv, and I said, well, he said his name's Norm Macdonald. I think it was Eddie Feldman told me this, and I said, well, tell me, what's he like? And he said, I just remember one joke. Remember, he used to do that great joke about I feel sorry for the homeless guy, but I really feel sorry for the homeless guy's dog, because you know the dog's thinking, this is the longest fucking walk. I mean, do we go in anywhere? Because I could do this on my own. I laughed so hard at that joke.
Yeah.
And it's so Norm, and it's a great early Norm. Like the idea that his mind would be just on a homeless guy and his dog. It feels like an early Norm bit where he would later evolve to more complex things. But even just Dennis describing it, you're like, oh, that's Norm Macdonald. And I love the way he describes him as Andy Kaufman if Andy could have written jokes. I think it's the perfect way to break Norm down, because Andy Kaufman was great at what he did. And Norm had that skill set. And he was also a legendary, pure stand-up comedian and joke writer.
Yes. Yeah, right. Exactly. Andy was about the bits, you know, and but Norm, because as I mentioned earlier, I mean, he did get hired as a comedy writer. He was a writer on Roseanne, you know, he wrote on SNL before he was on camera. So he certainly was a very talented joke writer, but then you just realize like, oh, the person to deliver that is obviously Norm.
Yeah. And even like his movie, like Dirty Work, is all jokes. You know, more than storyline. It's a lot more jokes.
Yes. So some might say the story to Dirty Work is a little thin, Mike.
Well, I watched an interesting YouTube thing recently where they say the original cut of Dirty Work that Norm wanted released makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
If it was released as an R-rated movie, the way Norm and Saget wanted it.
Yes.
So
yeah, that is you can watch that now. They've put out a 4K Blu-ray release of Dirty Work.
Really?
Yeah, and they didn't have that version of the film, but they had filmed test screenings of that version. So and somebody had like a camcorder in the back of the room, but they're not going to put that out. So then they went back, they got all the dailies, all the original film, and they, based on that VHS, they cut together this new version of Dirty Work, which is called Dirtier Work, which is very clever marketing, and it's great. I recommend it to everyone who's a fan of that movie, and you'll realize like, oh yeah, this might have succeeded if they'd let it be an R-rated movie instead of,
because the way this video broke it down, it's like there's scenes where Artie Lang's talking to like the bartender, it doesn't make any sense, and then in this version of the movie, you're like, oh, that's why he would be saying that to this guy.
Right, exactly.
So and then one last clip here. We'll hear Dennis explaining why he hired Norm, the packet that he submitted for that early talk show.
The bit I tried to spoil earlier.
Yes.
But I say, well, see if he wants a gig if he's new in town. So they call Norm, and you know how they always say, put together a packet. And this made me laugh. This is the midwife joke that makes me laugh. And he says, Norm says he won't do packets. And that word sounds it
funny.
sounds grim, like you're a taskmaster when you say, I want a packet of jokes. He said, but I'll send one joke and you can make a determination. So he said, remember the joke he did about Dahmer, where he essentially reads the UPI wire copy of the Jeffrey Dahmer trial. And it's so grim. I mean, it could not be grimmer. It's like Hieronymus Bosch sort of, and he disemboweled the young boy and ate the entrails, all that stuff. And he gets to the end of the joke and Norm says, in his defense, Dahmer said he started it. It's such a Norm.
Hired him on the spot.
Hired him on the spot.
Yeah.
That's such a Norm thing too, because he would recycle ideas like that, and they would still work. Like he has a joke on Norm Macdonald Live about I'm forgetting the name now. God damn it! But it's the Fred Stoller episode where he talks about this gruesome murder and he's describing it in vivid, horrible detail, and then he goes, "I'm not afraid to say it. This guy's a real jerk." So Norm is again one of the few guys that could get away with his style because I think his delivery was also so amazing. But another thing I appreciated about their relationship, Dennis and Norm, is Norm respected Dennis so much also, and you can see that in his relationship with Letterman, and I think it's evident in his relationship with Dennis Miller, where he really respected Dennis and would pay homage to him by using bigger Dennis Miller type words and references. Like sometimes Norm would make an obscure reference and kind of go like, "You like that, Dennis?" Like it was for him.
Yeah, exactly. If he referred a black and white Western that only ran one season in the early 60s, he's like, that was a Dennis joke.
Yes, yeah. Any other thoughts on your dealings with Norm Macdonald or just him on that show in general?
It was I mean, you can hear and even me re-listening to these clips, you're laughing so hard you can't breathe. And it was great that we had him every week. And getting to know Norm at all, getting to know Dennis at all was just very crazy because I grew up admiring both of them so much. I mean, Dennis's first comedy album, the Off-White album, is pretty close to perfect. His first special is basically the same material, and I always love Norm. And I was mentioning to you when we were trading messages, the last time I saw Norm was David Spade had a show called Lights Out on Comedy Central, and the guests that day were Dennis Miller, Kevin Nealon, and Norm Macdonald. So the show was very good. You can find it; it's very funny, but there was the green room beforehand, and it was all those comics and me, again, speaking of fly on the wall, and Norm's mom was there too. Okay. So, in hindsight, I kind of realized like, oh yeah, Norm looked a little different. So he probably already knew he was sick.
Right.
But the show was nothing compared to the conversation in that green room. And if they tried to have that conversation on the air, none of them would have had careers the next day. It was unbelievable how funny they could be when they're not, being recorded and just playing off each other. And, Kevin Nealon, kind of a silent assassin that people don't think, but he can go to some
Nealon's underrated. He
can go to some really dark places. He's so funny. I love Kevin Nealon. Yeah. So anyway, that's my fond, for that to be the last time I ever saw Norm and just, again, laughing so hard. That's what I think of when I think of Norm and Dennis together. Just always laughing because at the end of the day, Mike, we're all fans,
That's true. Well, Christian, thank you so much for coming on, buddy. I think you had some real insight. It was good to have you here because, like I said, I didn't know a ton about the Dennis Miller show while it was on the air, but it has truly become, like I said, if you're like me and you like those long compilations, either throw on in the background while you're doing at work or doing laundry or falling asleep or whatever, I highly recommend Dennis Miller and Norm Macdonald because it's the perfect it's the perfect mood for that type of compilation, I think.
Right, exactly. And if you are able to find clips of when Brian Regan would be on the Dennis Miller show, then you'll understand how my job was supposed to work. And it'd be like, hey, what else, Brian? You would be good at hosting To Catch a Predator, wouldn't you? And Brian's like,
that'd be great. Why don't you sit down? All right, Christian, go check out the Blattcast. Check out Who Are These Broadcasters every Tuesday at 1. And what was the other podcast you said?
Oh, the 100 songs that define heavy metal. If you're a metalhead, and who isn't, we have some tremendous guests on that show as we look at some of the greatest metal songs. So you can find that wherever you find podcasts.
Craig should check that out. He's a metal guy. And if you want to check out Craig, go to verygoodshow.org. I never know what's on there, but maybe by the time this comes out, it'll be flourishing. And Craig will have a bunch of content back there.
We shall see. Who knows?
Check out verygoodshow.org. And blindmike.net is where you can find this program, all of our links, whether they be free or whether you want to become a member on Patreon or YouTube. All the links are blindmike.net. We appreciate you guys, and we will talk to you next time on Why Are You Laughing?
Zip it up and zip it out.